After nearly 2 decades of development, the USS Gerald R has set the standard as the world's most advanced warship. But the US Navy isn't stopping there. It's about to launch a new carrier of the same class, and it's headed for the contested waters of the South China Sea. How close are we to its debut, and what's the status of the Navy's next generation of carriers? Let's find out. The Gerald R. Ford class is a fleet of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers being developed by the Newport News Shipbuilding Division of Huntington Ingalls Industries for the U.S. Navy under its CVN-21 aircraft carrier program. Eventually, all Nimitz-class flatops will be replaced by new class of carriers. According to the U.S. Navy, the Gerald R. Ford class will be the premier forward asset for crisis response and early decisive strike power in a major combat operation. In all, the Navy plans to procure 10 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers from the Ford class, the first 4 of which are the USS Gerald R. Ford itself, USS John F. Kennedy, USS Enterprise, and USS Doris Miller. The CVN-78 was delivered to the U.S. Navy in May 2017 and commissioned in July 2017. The aircraft carrier completed a multi-week final deployment composite training unit exercise for certification as a combat deployable U.S. warship in April 2023. The ship replaced the USS Enterprise, CVN-65, which was decommissioned after more than 5 decades of active service. Built by Newport News Shipbuilding, the Gerald R. Ford is 1,092 feet in length and has a beam of 134 feet, while the flight deck is 256 feet wide. With a displacement of approximately 100,000 tons, the Ford class is larger than its predecessor, the Nimitz class, but accommodates 500 to 900 fewer crew members. While larger in size than the Nimitz carriers, the CVN-78 can operate with a smaller crew thanks to a greater emphasis on automation, and the carrier will also see a reduction in maintenance requirements as well as a crew workload reduction. This will allow for improved quality of life for the crew, including better berthing compartments, larger gyms and workout facilities, and more ergonomic workspaces. In total, the Ford-class ships will feature 23 new or upgraded systems compared to the Nimitz-class carriers. In designing the Ford, Navy engineers chose to eliminate the traditional steam catapults used on Nimitz-class carriers and replace them with the new electromagnetic aircraft launch system, EMALS. EMALS technology offers the potential benefit of finer aircraft acceleration control, which leads to lower stress levels in the aircraft and pilots, provides a slower launch speed for unmanned air vehicles, and allows a wider window of wind-over-deck speed required for the launch sequence. With this new system, the carrier will be able to operate up to 160 flights per day and up to 220 flights per day during crisis situations and intense air combat operations. The ship can carry up to 90 aircraft simultaneously, including the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, FA-18EF Super Hornet, E-2D Advanced Hawkeye, EA-18G Growler Electronic Attack Aircraft, MH-60RS helicopters, as well as unmanned aerial vehicles. The Ford is also equipped with advanced arrestor gear, AAG. The electromagnetic motor applies control to the synthetic arrestor cable to reduce the maximum tension in the cable and decrease the peak load on the arrestor hook and the aircraft fuselage. Another unique feature of the USS Gerald Ford is its 11 Advanced Weapons Elevators, AWEs. These elevators can lift up to 24,000 pounds and significantly increase the strike power of the carrier's air wing. According to Commander Richard Rosenbusch, Ford's assistant air officer, the AWEs also relieve flight deck operators of the additional task of preparing weapons. The elevators allow weapons to be assembled and armed inside the fuselage before being raised to the flight deck, where they are attached to the aircraft. In addition, the Gerald Ford is equipped with 2 A-1B nuclear reactors, its own nuclear power plant. The A-1B generates 3 times as much power as the A-4W reactors aboard current Nimitz-class carriers. This will allow the Ford to reach speeds of up to 30 knots and operate autonomously without refueling for approximately 20 to 25 years. The Ford-class ship's configuration is also designed to incorporate new research and development of more advanced technologies over the course of its 50-year service life. For example, the Office of Naval Research is currently testing 3 classes of weapons, including directed energy weapons, high-energy lasers, and high-powered microwaves. Directed energy weapons are expected to eventually be installed on the carrier. It cost Uncle Sam approximately $13.3 billion to design and build the USS Gerald Ford. For comparison, the USS Ronald Reagan, the 9th Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier entered into service, cost approximately $4.5 billion. In November 2022, the Gerald Ford returned to its home port of Norfolk, Virginia, after completing its maiden voyage. During Ford's 53 days at sea in the Atlantic, the carrier sailed approximately 9,275 nautical miles, conducted 1,250 sorties, delivered more than 78 tons of ordnance, and completed 13 underway replenishments. In addition, the Ford was sent to the eastern Mediterranean to be within striking distance of Israel, beginning the day after the October 7th attacks. The carrier remained in the eastern Mediterranean while its accompanying warships sailed to the Red Sea, where they repeatedly intercepted incoming ballistic missiles and attack drones fired from Houthi-controlled Yemen. After months of extra duty at sea protecting Israel, the USS Gerald R. Ford Aircraft Carrier Strike Group returned home in January 2024. But this is only the first ship of this class. What about the others? Northrop Grumman was awarded a contract in November 2006 to plan and design the second aircraft carrier, CVN-79. In May 2011, the U.S. Navy announced that the carrier would be named USS John F. Kennedy. Construction of CVN-79 began in February 2011, and the keel was laid in July 2015. The USS John F. Kennedy was christened and launched in December 2019. But like many of the U.S. Navy's upcoming projects, the service's latest Ford-class aircraft carrier is experiencing delays. The second Ford-class aircraft carrier was initially expected to reach fleet readiness by 2022, however, the warship is now slated to be delivered in 2025 at the earliest. Considering the prowess the Ford-class ships will provide the Navy out at sea, the timely arrival of the USS John F. Kennedy should be a top priority for the service. The U.S. Naval Institute had disclosed that the ship's delay to service occurred so that the Navy could alter the ship's post-shakedown availability and perform more work during construction. Initially, the Kennedy was not capable of fielding the Navy's newest strike fighter, the F-35C Lightning II. Since the Pentagon was pouring billions of dollars into funding this new carrier, Congress insisted that Kennedy be equipped to deploy the fifth-generation fighter. The Ford class will serve as a critical component of the Navy's war strategy if an all-out conflict with China unfolds shortly. Therefore, it would be silly for the carrier to not be able to field the service's top-of-the-line stealth fighter platform. Specifically, once operational, the Kennedy will join the Pacific Fleet to support the Navy's missions in the Indo-Pacific amidst escalating tensions with China in the South China Sea. From what is publicly known, in November 2023, Captain Brian Metcalf, the Navy's program manager for the Ford-class aircraft carriers, said the Kennedy is 90% complete at HII's Newport News shipyard. Later, in February 2024, HII announced that its Newport News Shipbuilding Division, NNS, recently began topside testing of the emails on the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy. Following successful no-load testing on catapults 1 and 2, known as the Bowcats, the NNS team, alongside the John F. Kennedy crew, has started dead-load testing. In this phase, large wheeled car-like structures of graduated weights up to 80,000 pounds to simulate the weight of actual aircraft are launched off the carrier's bow into the James River. They are then retrieved and relaunched until the conclusion of the test program to ensure the catapults are ready for their primary intended purpose: to launch all carrier-based fixed-wing aircraft flown by the U.S. Navy. The next two Ford-class carriers, Enterprise CVN-80 and Doris Miller CVN-81, are expected to be deployed in 2028 and 2032, respectively. But according to the Navy's fiscal year 2025 budget documents, the CVN-80, which is currently under construction at HII's Newport News shipbuilding in Virginia, will deliver in September of 2029, 18 months later than its previous scheduled delivery date in March of 2028. The documents cite delays in material availability and industry supply chain performance as the reason for the schedule change. Anyway, we will most likely hear more about these two carriers, as well as the other 6 planned ships of this class, a little later. However, in light of the latest news, the 2025 launch date for the USS John F. Kennedy sounds quite realistic. And what do you think about it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to always stay in touch. And thanks for watching.